If everyone could please stand and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we have had some agenda adjustments. We have added some items to our new business. We will discuss once we get to the new business. We will move on to 2.1 to approve the minutes of the October 11th Board of Directors meeting and the October 12th, 2023 emergency budget meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? All those not in favor? I didn't see your hand, so that's why I
I'm abstaining because I wasn't at one of the two meetings.
Okay.
Since you lumped them both together.
Okay. Thank you.
There is, no, I want to vote, but there is a mistake in the minutes. If you look at 6.3, it says approve the motion. Bob English moved, and then Bob English seconded. Oh, well, there you go.
I slid over a chair.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes Michelle has a hard time hearing who's doing what.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. All right, I will move down to number 3, public comment. If you have something you'd like to say, please approach the mic. Identify yourself and the town you are from. So I will now open up our mic for online. No one? No? Okay. Petitions and communications, there are none. We will move down to reports, our superintendent's report.
Okay, so I'd rather hold it. Okay, so what I'm going to report on, well, you know, been busy a lot with the budget and things like that. I will say that people are taking advantage of our supervision. I want to thank the office and the staff that's stepped up to want to be able to do that, and our principals for making sure and so forth. So we're going to try to keep that going as we continue with the black bus being down and another bus. Like today, we had another bus down, but we offered that to parents as an option. So at some of the schools, not very big participation, but that's because there's less students at that school as well that transport. The middle school probably has the highest number. They're running about 14, 8 in the morning. I had the numbers. They're sitting on my desk. But people are, I don't think the high school has had a lot of participation. Libby Tozier's had a higher number than Carrie Ricker. So it's been varied, but it's an option. So we're going to watch that, and then as we bring people, you know, our drivers on board and people are returning, hopefully we'll be all right. You know, we're watching funding. We are looking at our ARP funds for that because in our student loss, you can offer tutoring and checking in on work. So the staff know that students that stay from that bus, if there's stuff that they can help them with, you know, with their homework or helping with assignments, they're doing that. So we're trying to use the funds we have in order to pay for that. And then if we're not doing that, we're using other funds in our budget, looking at those lines, okay? So just want to make people aware of that. The other thing I wanted to share is Megan Brown, our SRO, shared September. So I'll just read what she wrote. So I thank you, Megan, for providing us with information. And so she did about 23 in September where she had 1 arrest. She had 2 calls for service. She had 1 incident report. She did a drill. She did 2 training classes, 2, which probably is the Alice training that she provided. Then contact with students, 2, teacher contacts, 4, parent contacts, 3, truancy issues, 4, school events attended, 2, and meetings attended, 1. She was not with us much in September. That was really maybe 2 weeks. So she wrote that we began the rollout of Alice with RSU4 staff. The first part of Alice, the PowerPoint, was taught at the teacher's workshop on August 28th. The scenario portion of the class is being conducted throughout the remainder of the month, which she has been, and they've done a nice job working with staff on doing those scenarios. She spoke with a parent about issues with her child around refusing to leave the building. She assisted a student with lockers and belongings. She's helped parents with pickup. She's attended lunches. She's talked with students as she's been in the buildings. She's been working on anti-bullying, which we are going to be looking at as an administrative team with Megan. And then she's helped with dismissal. She's talked with other students and about sports teams, and she's been doing some truancy check-ins with the buildings. So she's been very busy, and she did go to the bonfire for the homecoming, she and her husband, to help also supervise that. So she's been busy, even though she hasn't been with us, she's been doing a lot of work for us. So it's been wonderful with her schedule of being in the middle school or the high school every day, and then she goes to the elementaries on a rotating basis and then responding where she needs to be. So I think that's been working out well.
Can I just ask a question about, a few meetings ago I had asked about a list of how many, not a list of names, but how many students maybe weren't making it to school because of the transportation issue? Do we know what that number is?
What we did look at is attendance, and it's varied. So, because we've been looking at daily attendance at different buildings, but some it hasn't had major, we've been at 83, 85%, another building at 53%. So it's not like consistently, and I didn't get the numbers of how many exactly because of bus issues. It's
So
been
when you call and you are reporting your student absent, or when students are absent and then the staff is calling, do we
those are
note that-
excused.
but do we note those as like they're sick, they're whatever, or it's because of transportation?
Yes.
So
we do.
can we get a list of how many per school per
Yes.
week is not attending maybe for the next meeting?
Yes.
Or like how many haven't been able to attend because of transportation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how, is there any, I had asked before for maybe a bus parked out front with a sign on it that says hiring bus drivers. Because we have a few buses. How many buses do we have sitting? But 10, 9, 7?
So I think I did that Monday night.
Yeah.
It was late when I was
Yeah.
doing it. But we don't, right now we have what we need in the pipeline, right? It will be whether people finish their trainings in the timeline we have. So I hate to advertise and have people come in and not have positions. However, we are advertising that we still want people to come in. Does that make sense?
Do we have like a per diem pool, like they're kind of on call if we need them in the future type of thing? Are we building that up, or?
Like a substitute? We are subbing right now the pre-K runs.
Mm-hmm.
We've had bus drivers from other districts who could do a mid-run, be substitutes, so that's been great, and they're willing to do anything in the middle there. But you're right, we have to continue to build the pool.
Right. So like a
Yes.
per diem as a as needed basis.
They
like
do a
if you-
substitute, they get
Yeah.
substitute pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But good questions, yeah.
Anyone else? We will move down to director reports. Norma Jean for technology.
My goodness. Jordan, you're too tall. Okay. All right. All right. Of course, I put it right in the middle of my thing, of course. That's Kathy, can you adjust me? Put the slider in there. For our October update, I just want to tell you a little bit about what technology is doing in October. October is our fall assessment window. So the big thing is NUIA. So we're getting devices ready. We're helping teachers with the testing. And for this year, just like last year, we have 2 platforms going. We have the state platform, which is the through year, and we have our NUIA. And so it's always the dance of, are you using the black and yellow icon or the blue icon? And so we want to make sure everybody gets on the right one to take the right test so we don't have any issues. It's gone really great. The teachers have been amazing. We're also working on our October enrollment. So part of that is going through all those economic status forms. The schools have been amazing getting those forms to us. We're getting them into the system, getting them uploaded, getting ready for Katie to certify in just a couple short days. So yeah, she smiles. And then, so we're verifying an enrollment, attendance, truancy, behavior, English language learners, all that stuff we do in October. We're also doing PD sessions for Power School and the grade book with teachers. So a lot of them are finishing their first unit. So Kathy has been great. She's pairing us with the instructional coaches so that we're doing the PD sessions together, which is huge benefit for the teachers because we're talking about the standards and the technology together, which is great. We started our process of selecting technology coaches. So we put out a survey. They self-select from the pool. The building admin look at that and decide, you know, who would be the best fit for this year, what we're doing for the coaching. And so we've selected a couple already, and we're still getting more feedback and getting them in. We'll onboard them probably the beginning of next month to get them going on our cybersecurity, and they're working on Power School and Performance Matters. And so I'll be updating you on that later in November. And then we're just starting the prep for snow days being remote. So part of that is just getting the devices ready. I'm like steaming up. Getting their, because I can't see, getting their extra chargers in their bag. So in the classrooms, a lot of them have a cart. So that's set up with one set of chargers. We send them home with another set. So we're not taking those carts apart. So when they come back, they can charge them. And so whatever we're doing, we're trying to make it easier for the teachers. So the bags are ready for them. We're setting up the meet for them. If we can, we're setting up Zoom. We're going to try something new with the lower levels. So we're working that out in the next couple of weeks. And so we'll update you on that. But all of it is a collaboration between many parties, hoping to make it as easy as possible for teachers, for parents, and for kids if we have a remote snow day. All right. Any questions about any of this before I go to my next slide? Yes.
Yeah, Norma Jean, I know it's early in the year, but are all the staff that are using the Power School and have websites is what I'm saying. And I know there's a big difference between, you know, some people that are really technology savvy and some that aren't. Mm-hmm. But I know with the online learning now and everything else, are we getting people all up to date as best we can?
Yeah, so everybody has been really great. The admin are working with, so we haven't done the websites, like a website for a teacher in a few years, but we are using Seesaw and Google Classroom as that learning platform. And so one of the main goals that we've been working on and building admin as well with teachers is to make sure that we're not rushing at the last second to get them onto Seesaw or get them onto Google Classroom. So they're being very, very proactive, and probably all of them are on. The high school has been getting everybody onto Power School for their grades and everything. So it's been, to answer your question, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yes.
In kind of piggybacking on that with the Power School app, is there a report of how many parents or caregivers hasn't logged into it? Because I was kind of surprised when I have been talking about it and how amazing it is that you can see their grades. And, you know, teachers too send you those emails and the newsletters that, you know, you should be looking at Power School and these things. And people are like, I have no idea what this is. And just the month ago or so, or a few weeks, you got our logins. But is there a report that shows how many parents or caregivers maybe haven't logged in? And do we do anything to reach out to those parents or caregivers to make sure that they understand what it is and how to access it?
There is a usage report, and we have parent-teacher conferences around the corner. What I did last year, and I'll do this year too, is I'll sit there at a table with the login sheets. I'm sure you guys saw me last year. And then whatever sheets are left over, we give to the secretaries to pass out. So we'll work on the ones that are missing this year.
Okay.
Come to my table.
Well, I don't need to now, but
I know. You got yours.
I want to add about remote snow days, just to remind folks that it won't be an automatic remote day because we have to. It's always nice when we know it's going to be a huge storm. It's going to dump 6 inches. Great. Let's send home meals. Okay. So part of it is the anticipation of being able to send home meals ahead of time. Like last year, we sent some meals home just in anticipation. If we didn't have it, we didn't have it. So it's always in timing. So I just want people to know that sometimes it will be not have a snow. We'll have a snow day, but it's not a remote day because of the timing of the storm. And others will be obvious, and it will be remote. So it's not going to be every time there's a snow day, there's a remote day. So I just want people to know that we'll do our best to anticipate what's going on. But if it's we didn't know about it on Sunday, suddenly we hear about something and technology didn't go home, meals didn't go home, it would be a snow day. So I just want to remind folks, and we'll continue to put slides up on our Facebook page just to remind folks of what's coming up.
Thank you. Any other questions for this slide? All right. Next. Kathy. Next. You touched that thing and it's all over, so I'm happy she did that too. All right. So I just wanted to update you that Jordan and I went to the ACTM conference, which is the Association of Computer Technology Educators of Maine. And so they do a fall conference and a spring conference. Their fall conference is the biggest one because they have all the vendors, they have all the sessions. And if you run a session, you get free or reduced admission, so that's always great. We do pay to be a member of ACTM, so it's $20 to join, but they offer you $400 worth of PD for that $20, so you can reimburse. Mrs. Whalen, I think, has taken advantage of that before. So when teachers ask, we send a membership for them too. But we did a conference on healthy balance in school with tech. So kind of balancing that screen time. We gave little gift boxes that had like blue light blocking glasses, healthy snacks, vitamin C, stress things, just to make it fun. Everybody likes fun gifts. We also, because Jordan has his favorite taco cat shirt that he always wears, we had to tie that into our session. And so we were trying to show them different ways to balance the amount of screen time you do with other activities and to get that personal relationship going between the kids. And so during our whole session, and we only had 3, which is sad, but it's okay, which is a good way to test it for maybe doing it at a larger scale for us, is I didn't see a single person get onto their phone to see what they might be missing in that hour while they're there, which was great. And so great conversations, everything tied into technology, except for the cat trivia, but it was pretty good. And then they got free gifts and games. And we talked about screen time, earning screen time. So if you read a book for a little while, you'd earn 5 minutes. So some tools they could use in their classroom. So we had a bingo game and we did some different fun things. So it was just kind of a lot of fun thing for us to do and to also get in free and join a couple sessions as well to learn more about tech and meet some of our vendors in person, kind of ask them some questions. So it was good all the way around. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Norma Jean.
You're welcome.
Next is operations, Jonathan.
Hey, good evening. I haven't seen all of you in a little while and been able to do a presentation like this. I have a newborn at home that's put us through the ringer already a couple times. So he's doing really well, though. So I'm happy to report that. On the facility side, so we have a couple projects going and some prep and planning. So over at Sabatis Primary, we have some water fountains being installed. For those who are familiar with SPS, there's only one water fountain in the entire building. It's on the first floor, kind of on the left side as you start the classroom wing. And so we're looking to, in works with a plumber that we have, we're looking to install a water fountain upstairs, centrally located in the hallways, and then also one down by in the gym, cafeteria gym area over by where the kitchen food comes out. We're looking to put 2 water fountains there and then also run new piping back to the water main to eliminate the lead concern that we've been having. So that the water fountains just came in today, so they're going to look to be installed soon. And then once those are up and running, I'll put a memo out for staff and students and parents to know that those are up and running and able to be, drink from. So due this month, it's like a ton of inspections are due. So boiler, pressure vessel, elevator certifications are all due this month. So we have our insurance company, a third-party member, come out, inspect our boilers, our pressure vessels, our elevators, so we can get state certifications back. So those are all expiring at the end of the month. So we've already got those in process. We're just waiting for the state to send us our certs. Tuesday, I have a monthly custodial meeting with head custodians. So the big topic is winter prep and planning. Some of you have seen around the schools at the high school, at the middle school, and over split between Cary Ricker and Libby Tozier, our new salt sheds. I've spoken on those before, but just to remind you, we were paying anywhere from $500 to $650 a pallet for 50-pound bags of salt. That's an equivalent to a ton. We can get a ton for $90. Delivered to these salt sheds. And it saves on slips, trips, falls, injuries to the back when we're picking those big, heavy bags up. So not only is it saving our backs, it's saving our wallets, which is great. I have an incident IQ events registration discussion tomorrow. So IIQ is the new school dude. It's for staff and faculty to put in, hey, a light bulb's out, or I need a desk, or something of that nature. There is the ability to do events registration. So if someone wants to request the gym on a Saturday, they can submit it through Incident IQ, eliminate the paperwork trail. It'll be a much quicker process in order to get something reserved, and I think it will streamline the process that we currently have in place. And then 2 weeks ago, I met with ER Field, did a yearly review. ER Field is, for all but the high school, our security monitoring and maintenance company for both actually security and fire. And so we went through and discussed sort of where we at with things, maybe some future projects to talk about, consolidating what we're getting calls on, so we can, basically streamline the fire and security monitoring process. In transportation, just quickly, so new bus driver. So Janice Sargent is starting up with us on Halloween. She's going to be here on a part-time basis to help out with the Black Run, and then full-time November 13th. And then, of course, once the black bus is up and running again, maybe with our old driver, Armin, she can transition over to another run that's being consolidated right now to alleviate both the drivers and the parents and students who are having to, be on a consolidated bus run. And then, as Katie had mentioned, so we have Tom and Rachel from MSAD 75 as sub-drivers. So Rachel is doing a PM take-in pre-K on Mondays and Fridays in the middle of the day. Tom has helped us out with some LRTC coverage. They're both willing to do nights and weekends for sports trips, field trips, things like that. So the way we have it set up now is I reach out to them and say, hey, can you do something for us? And if they can do it on a schedule, then we have them. So that's been really great. Recently hired a trip coordinator, Sheena Jordan, so she started on Monday. A lot of her role and responsibility is day-to-day transportation. Kid needs to be added or removed from the bus, moved to a different bus because they moved around the district. Field trip requests, vans, DOE reporting, things like that. So she's going to be really, really helpful in those day-to-day operations. And then I think I'd mentioned previously we are going to be in need of a new maintenance garage starting January 1. I did some cold calling. Don's Automotive out of Lisbon called back and said, yes, we can take on your fleet. I don't know what the logistics of that look like just yet. So they verbally committed, but I want to reach out to them more, walk their facility, talk about what the logistics of that look like before completely signing off on that. But they've done inspections for us before, so they're fully qualified, and they gave us the verbal yes to do it. So that's great. There'll be no lapse in coverage for our bus maintenance. Any questions on facilities or transportation? One at a time. I'll start. Laura.
Just curious if there was, I know that you had called around, and if there was anything put out for like anyone local in the district to do the bus maintenance. I think there was maybe somebody in Litchfield that's done it before, but is there anything put out to bid that people would have to put a bid in for bus mechanics?
I don't think historically we've done that. Typically when I think of something going out to bid, it's a total project cost, where it's a repair and maintenance. That might be a really hard number to put or a hard thing to put a value on. I certainly, like I said, haven't committed to Don's because I want to make sure, did we budget for their labor rate? Or did we, account for what that might cost us? So I don't think traditionally it's been put out to bid. I don't know if that's something that's practiced, but certainly something that we could consider if that's something that people are asking
Yeah, I
about.
definitely like to try to stay within the community. Not that, Lisbon's that far off, but, if we have local businesses that we're able, I don't know that we have any that are able to do that, but yeah.
Is that there's limited on who can work on buses. There's limitations as to who can work on buses. So I think that I think you reached out and asked people where they're having their buses.
Yeah, I'm part of a MAP-T group
right.
that helps
Exactly.
with that.
So you asked for who's using what's out there to start there.
Okay.
So people understand Sabatis Public Works was doing it, and due to their demand, they're not able to keep our fleet up, so that forced us to look out. But who were you going with before Sabatis?
Who was it before
Yes.
Sabatis? We had it split three ways between Ron Marston's garage on the Litchfield and West Gardner line. We had Mike Hannigan's garage, and then we had Lance's out in Monmouth.
Yeah, so thinking of like longevity of maybe if maybe there is a automotive or repair within our district that they could take that on, and that would be kind of like the Mark Hannigan, is it? So not like it could be maybe this potential to have this long relationship with an organization or a small business that's local is just all I was thinking. If we could maybe publish something, maybe nobody will even consider it, but I just think it would be great to try to get somebody within the community to do that. And then is there any opportunity for, waiting for that list of students that maybe don't make it? Is there opportunity for kids to take a bus home? Like, I know the buses are pretty packed already, but is there any opportunity for maybe some kids to take a bus home with one of their friends that their parents say that's okay? Or is there any room on the buses to, if somebody wanted to drop their kid off at a friend's house, like I drop my kid off at Scott's house, they get on Scott's bus, they get off at Scott's bus because I can't make it there at 4:00 to pick them up either.
Right. There could be some potential for that. My concern is if I can't do it for all, I don't really want to pick and choose. I feel like that could be selective, and I don't want to make anyone feel like they're not being heard or being helped. I'm pretty confident that with the addition of Janice and Armin coming back, we'll be able to bolster our busing quite substantially with those additions, and we can alleviate a lot of those right now. Our buses are basically at capacity, and I'd be afraid to push those any further. If it's my call, it's not even my job on the line. It's the bus drivers and their license, and if they get pulled over by state police, that's on them. And I don't want to put anyone in a position if we can't do that with the bus capacity is all. But certainly something to look into.
Thank you.
And that is on top of a laundry list of things I've got for her. It's to dissect the bus routes and find better ways to be more efficient with our student transport.
Yeah, John, talking about the RE fields, looking at our equipment and stuff like that, where do we stand on the fire control board at Libby Tozier?
Their direct words are it's a hodgepodge system. It doesn't meet UL listing standards. It doesn't meet code standards. It's out of date is the best way to put it. I'm not an ER field security fire expert, but their modules that are in those are not replaceable.
Right.
So if they fail until you replace the entire panel. So it's a matter of time until something happens and we can't find replacement parts for it on, say, eBay or something like that.
And have we got an idea what the replacement of that panel would cost?
Early estimates were in the $90,000 range.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Again, that's at a very standing back and looking at it, getting a detailed estimate, would prove to be more accurate. Of course.
So right now that covers all our school building plus the senior center, right?
ER field field is monitoring fire and security for all our buildings except for the high school.
Right.
We can't. The system that's in there now is proprietary to another company.
Right.
So short of replacing that panel, they don't have any way of monitoring it, unfortunately, for us. Something I'm still looking to try and make some changes to in the future, though.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I know at Sabattis Primary School they did a test on the lead in the water.
Yep.
Do you have the results of that test yet?
Yes. So that's been ongoing. The testing has, and so the latest. So just without getting too far into it, we had initial testing, which was the very first time we tested the water. Then we got confirmation tests just to prove what we did was right. And then we did a flush test, which is something that indicates if the potential lead exposure is in the pipes and the walls. And then once we got all that data, we, put signs up, shut down certain fixtures, depending on what we were, requested to do by our water quality specialists. And then at which point we said, okay, which fixtures do we need to replace? So we went out and replaced them, got water testing results back again. It fixed some of the problem, not all the problem, hence why we're looking to do the new water fountains with bottle fill stations and using all new piping to get back to it, so we eliminate that potential of testing for lead again with new fixtures.
So the fixtures that are still giving lead in the water, are they marked?
They have signs over them to say whether or not they're safe to drink.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Sure.
Once you get the bus driver situation to full bus driver capacity, I think it would be a really good idea for maybe you to continue to seek additional drivers within maybe central office, custodian. I know there's other districts that do part-time custodians, part-time bus drivers, just so we have extras on hand.
Yep.
Especially for transporting for sporting events. We had basically none of that so far. And backups for when people are out on leave or sick or whatever.
Yep.
And maybe try to reduce some of the length of time on these bus runs.
Yeah, certainly bolstering and getting some people back will eliminate, or not eliminate, but it will reduce the amount of ride time. I've also had coaches and teachers reach out with interest in getting their bus license. So now that we've got a step-by-step, set up for people to get their licenses, we've seen some interest in getting them, and in which case, like you said, for field trips, for sports trips, for backups for when people call out sick. So there's certainly a plan in place to do that. Yeah.
I have even encouraged some parents like at field hockey and stuff, and I'm like, you guys have like 6 kids in your car. You might as well just try to get your bus driver license because you could round it out with the 15.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Any other questions?
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Next is special education. Nancy?
Good evening, everybody. Is this on? Yeah. The last time I was here, Robbie, you had asked a question somehow relating to placements of students within the district. So I thought I would do a little bit of a deeper dive on that tonight. Least restrictive environment continuum, that's a pretty common term in districts describing the most restrictive and the least restrictive and everything in between as it increases. So when we talk about least restrictive, we're not just talking about in a classroom with students, we're talking about all day long. Do students have access to typical peers, meaning peers without IEPs, at recess? Do they have access at lunch? Do they have access before school? And UAs is another one, certainly. But looking at this, I just wanted to run through it. So at the bottom is the Gen Ed mainstream, and the way students with IEPs can stay in the mainstream most of the time is with in-class support, or if there's a co-teaching model where there's a Gen Ed teacher as well as a special ed teacher. So we have a couple of those happening at the high school, but that's where we have it in our district. And then moving to more restrictive would be a resource room. So now students are away from their mainstream classroom for part of their day. And resource rooms, if you're not aware of that, are academic instruction. So it would be math, reading, writing. They also provide executive function, so organization goals. They might work on staying on task, that kind of stuff as well. And then moving to a more restrictive setting would be a self-contained setting. Generally, that would be a behavior classroom or a functional life skills classroom. And that doesn't mean that students necessarily have to stay in that room all day long, but primarily they're spending their academic periods in that room. And then moving on from there, you could go to a public school day treatment, which in RSU4, that would be Gartley for us. So again, we say that's less restrictive than a special purpose private school because generally in a public school day treatment setting, somewhere in that district there are access to typical peers. Gartley doesn't do that with maybe they do it with their own students, but they're not doing it with the ones that are tuitioned there. But that's why that is where that is. And then moving to even more restrictive would be a special purpose private school. So we have 20 students currently at a special purpose private school. That is a completely self-contained setting. There's no access to any typical peers in that setting. Moving on from there would be residential. We haven't placed anyone in a residential setting. We do have a student who is placed in a residential setting in RSU4, but that's at the decision of Office of Child and Family Services, which is part of DHHS. And the school part of that is provided. That student remains with us as a student, but they're not there for the residential. They're not there for the school part. They're there for the residential piece. So we remain responsible for the IEP, even though they have a school attached to that residential setting. And then the next one would be hospital or homebound students. Again, no access to typical peers. Sometimes we have students in hospital settings, but it's pretty short term with tutoring. Since I've been here, I don't recall any homebound students. You could place homeschooling on that continuum, I suppose, if you wanted to. I've seen it on certain districts' continuum, but I didn't. So when we think about budget development, this certainly gets impacted because in-class support, what we try to do is provide as many layers of that continuum as possible. You don't want to just jump from in-class support and then have to move to a self-contained setting because you don't have a resource room. If you have access to ed techs, it's much better to be able to keep kids in the mainstream and not even have to go to the resource room for the math. They could stay in a gen ed setting. So it certainly impacts the wish list of special ed when it comes to budget. So what LRE, which is the least restrictive environment, which is how we generally refer to it, might look like for one child with a disability is not what it might look like for another. Some kids might be able to go to a UA, some kids can't go to any UAs. Some kids can go to an academic setting but can't handle lunch and recess. So those percentages are all over the place. The primary intention of that provision is to ensure that a child that is receiving a special education gets included in the gen ed classroom environment as often and frequent as possible. Department of Education and federal OSEP hold our feet to the fire on that. They're making sure that we are documenting in every IEP how much time that student is spending with typical peers. And if it's not 100%, they want to know why. And we have to provide statements about that in the IEP. So we take it very seriously. We're required to talk about it at every IEP meeting. Is a child who's not in a classroom for 100% of the time, could we start increasing that a little bit to get them to the 100%? That's our goal. Looking at our continuum, just looking, I'm going to go back just one second. Whoops, sorry. we're going the wrong way. Do you want me to do yours, Brian? I could do that. Wait, I'm not using the right. I'm on a roll. Yeah, it's a commercial. Yep. Sorry. So really, when I'm going to talk about RSU4, I'm really only talking about gen ed, mainstream, the resource room, and the self-contained, those first three. Let's see if I can get back to where I was. So I want to start on the right side at Oak Hill High School, and I'll work my way to the left. So Oak Hill High School has 3 resource rooms. Again, that's providing academic support, maybe some executive function, especially design instruction as well. They have 1 behavior room. That could be a self-contained setting for some students. It doesn't have to be. They might go there as part of their day on their IEP for 30 minutes. They might go there for an academic support period because they can't be in a bigger setting to access study halls or things like that. They also have an FLS room, a functional life skills room. Again, some students might be able to access a class or 2. Some students would be fully self-contained. When you look at Oak Hill Middle School, it's the same setup. We have 3 resource rooms, we have a behavior room, and we have a functional life skills room. Moving on to Carey Ricker, we have that same model. 3 resource rooms, 1 behavior room, and a functional life skills room. Going to Sabatis Primary, and this is since the reorganization, we have a special education classroom, 1 physical classroom. And I'm not including related services, speech and OT in this. I'm only talking about special education design instruction. That classroom has to operate as a resource room, a behavior room, and a functional life skills room. We have 1 teacher there. And then moving to Libby Tozier, which just has our K, kids with IEPs. Again, it is 1 special education classroom, which acts as a resource room, a behavior room, and a functional life skills room. Far less impact, even though the grades are pretty close together, between Libby Tozier and Sabatis Primary. Libby Tozier having kindergartners, they're often not, we don't know yet if they're going to be a resource room student. Sometimes we don't know if they're going to require a functional life skills classroom. Sometimes you know there might be some behavior. That's the likely place where it's going to impact at Libby Tozier. Sabatis Primary, far different. By then you have several kids identified with IEPs stating they have math, reading, and writing services, and otherwise they can be in their mainstream classroom. However, we have students with emotional disabilities also at that point, and they are also in that classroom, as well as functional life skills students. So looking at the percentages of, as of today, doing the numbers, we're chasing this number all the time, how many students with IEPs because of move-ins, move-outs. As of today, we have 260 students in the district with IEPs. So when you're looking at time with typical peers, again, across a day, the 0% of time with typical peers, you can see, is 8.5%. That comprises the 20 outplaced students, as well as about 5 or 6 kindergartners who are not yet ready to be out in gen ed classrooms fully. And then moving on, and this is, when you wonder how I broke down the percentages the way they did, this is the way the feds would do it, and the state of Maine does it as well. So number of students spending less than 40% of their time with peers is 10.8%. And then 40 to almost 80% of their time with peers is 26.9, and 80% time all the way up to 100 spent with peers in their school day is 53.8%. So looking at the data from state of Maine, looking at the average of all of these schools in Maine, it was interesting. The most recent data you can get around things like this is 2021, October 1, 2021. They matched almost exactly. Our data now matched with the state data from 2021, except for the 0% time with peers. Theirs was a couple of percentage points lower than that, which is probably due to our increased students that are being outplaced. So any questions? Yep, Doug?
If you go back a slide.
I'll try.
Please. What would be your recommended then for Libby, Tozier, Sabatis primary for room amount to meet the needs with special ed?
That could change from year to year. I mean, obviously, my wish list would be to have a a behavior room and a functional life skills room, in addition to a resource room, for at all of those.
3 separate rooms would be
Correct. Yep. However, this year at Libby Tozier, we're doing just fine with one teacher. Sabatis primary, it's more of a challenge because we have several students with high behaviors.
A question to that,
Sure.
too, is do you feel like Carrie Ricker Middle School and High School have what you need there, or that's what you have to work with, you could use?
I think we have what we need.
Okay. And then
Unless numbers were to change, Lord, drastically, then I'd be saying something different. But since I've been here, this is my 5th year here, I would say Carrie Ricker, Oak Hill Middle, Oak Hill High School are fine.
And then at the last time that you presented, there was, I don't know, 1 or 2 students that were waiting to be placed. Is that still a waiting game, or?
One student has been accepted and will be starting in the near future. The other student continues to be on a wait list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Next is Athletic Director Brian.
Good evening, everybody. So I wanted to start out. Is this on? Yeah. All right, sorry. I want to start out. I actually meant to report on this in my last report from a little while ago. You guys remember those days in the early fall when it was, ridiculously hot? We were talking about shutting down school and all things like that. So there's actually a program through the Maine Principal Association where I could apply to get one of these wet bulb meters here that you see. That's our athletic trainer using it, and it actually takes a measurement of the humidity and the temperature in the air, and then gives us a reading on a scale if it's safe to be outside and participate or not. So we actually got to utilize that. It was really cool. We had a couple days where we did have to cancel stuff due to the reading we got from this device, or days where we were measuring it like every 5 minutes and we were watching temperature and saying, okay, can we practice? Do we need restrictions? Do we need to make sure we have certain accommodations? And we're constantly going back and forth utilizing that tool. In fact, even some of the science teachers at the high school came out and brought it into some of their classrooms just to kind of see use this technology and show the kids talking about that. So it was a really cool opportunity from the MPA to kind of utilize that, not just to keep our athletes safe, but also to bring into the classroom as well. So something I just wanted to mention. Next, just to kind of throw it out there, our Boosters organization has been doing an awesome job rallying and bringing students in our community together. They've started doing a tailgate before every football game at the high school, so you can see a variety of pictures here of, a couple of young ladies actually sitting in the bed of the pickup truck to cornhole. They had a Halloween theme for the last one they did, so part of this was to kind of advertise for this, but also let you know that they're doing another one on November 4th if anyone's interested. We have parents and coaches that are setting up grills and they're doing burgers and dogs and bratwursts, and kids are playing yard games, and it's a pretty cool atmosphere for a couple hours before a home football game on a Saturday. Which kind of brings me to, lastly, playoffs. So we did have a handful of teams who made it into playoffs this year. So both of our middle school soccer programs made it into playoffs. Our high school field hockey program, our high school boys soccer program. And then the only one still going is football. They managed to get a first-round bye going into it. So they have a bye this week, and we'll be hosting our first playoff game on November 4th, which will be a week from this Saturday. It'll be at 12:30 at the high school. And they'll be playing the winner of Winthrop or Lisbon, whoever wins that game. So I'm anticipating, no matter what, it's going to be a packed house next Saturday just because of the rivalries there. So we are anxious. Yeah, it's home for us. Yeah, so we're anxiously awaiting to see who wins Friday night because they'll be coming to Oak Hill the following Saturday. So, any questions?
I saw Winthrop's Field.
Oh my!
That's pretty impressive.
Beautiful.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's if right, I know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
If anyone hasn't seen it yet, Winthrop High School's new turf facility is state of the art. It is gorgeous. It's unbelievable. We had the privilege of playing on it a couple weeks ago for a couple of our teams and the kids. I mean, it's breathtaking when you walk out there. So thank you.
Next is adult ed. Jim?
There we go. So what I would do, Brian, is if we have a home game against Winthrop or Lisbon, I would make sure the sprinklers are going the night before, so we have a little bit of home field advantage there. Did I say that?
They don't play in the mud no more.
Did I say that? With adult ed, I attended the state directors meeting on October 3rd, which was at UMA campus in Lewiston. Some of the updated items we talked about were a lot of programs across the state are having a 16-year-old influx of 16-year-olds interested in dropping out. And we've seen it here at Oak Hill. And so we've talked about in our hub, and hub is not an acronym, it's just a name for our region. But we talked about in our hub having a probationary period so that a student could start the adult ed program, and then when they turn 17, because they can't officially withdraw from school till 17, then they could start an adult ed program. So it's still in the beginning works. It's we obviously don't want to discourage kids from leaving high school, but we also don't want to have a gap where they don't have anything to go to. So it's a touchy area to try to fix. The second piece we had at the directors meeting was hub data, and what that was is we talk about all the programs in our hub. So our hub is Lewiston, Auburn, Mechanic Falls, Oak Hill, Lisbon, Mountain Valley, and Turner. So we talk about how our data compares with the other programs, and it's pretty informative because we talk about a lot of the obstacles that we're seeing with students coming into our programs post-COVID, and not being prepared, not wanting to be in a classroom. They just want to come in and finish. So that was a pretty informational meeting. The last piece at the directors meeting was measurable skill gains, and what that is it's CASAS testing, and I might have talked about that before, but CASAS is Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment Systems. So when a student comes into our program, the first thing we do is we pre-test them in math and English with the CASAS, and it gives us a baseline of where they're at. And then once they've gone through the program, whether it be high set, whether it be workforce training, whether it be high school diploma, we post CASIS test them to see what kind of growth that they had through the program. Sometimes you see a big jump, sometimes you don't see much jump at all. If it's a high set student that's coming in and can accomplish their high set in a matter of 5 weeks, you're not going to see a lot of growth in that program. But if it's somebody who's a high school diploma that's spent the whole year with us, you'll see a little bit more growth. So that's what we talked about at the state level, is making sure that we're measuring those gains that students are making in our programs. Okay, yoga for everyone. So yoga, we have an alumni that approached us about offering a class for students after school, and it would be targeted to, but not limited to, students who aren't involved in an athletic program. Just because there's a lot of students who don't play sports, but would like to have that health and wellness. So it would be designed to address those students. The instructor would like to do that for free and not charge the students so that they can try to draw in more. Also, we would welcome athletes too, but it's a tough time frame where if they're playing a sport, they're probably already busy at that time. But the same instructor also mentioned doing one for our staff, a health and wellness for our staff, with a very minimal cost, but just to try to attract some of our teachers across the district to come in and take advantage of a yoga program for adult ed. Yeah.
What's the cost?
So we haven't come up with a cost. It's really going to be, in our conversation, she didn't want to charge at all, and I said, I think you need to charge for accountability purposes, because what I find is if you don't have a fee attached to it, they may not show up. So she may show up on a Thursday for a class, and because nobody has to pay for it, they don't show up. But so it'd be a minimum cost of $5 to $10 to basically pay for the mats, and they use yoga blocks for that too. So
Just to let anybody listening know.
Sure. And then we do have another yoga class, which I think I talked about it at the previous one, which is later in the evening class, just a general beginner's yoga. So yoga is really big right now, and we're hoping to get some of our own people involved in what we're doing, and hopefully that will trickle into the evening class that we do with the public. Some of the classes coming up for this winter, electricity for homeowners. A gentleman reached out to me who was an instructor at Central Maine College, community college, would like to do a class for the community about just simple electricity in your home. But the neat thing about it is it can progress into wanting to become an electrician. This would be the practical piece of the course, and then there's an online piece that would actually get them closer to their certification and get them involved in the electrical program. So we're going to try that in the winter and see if we get any interest there. The next one is New Ventures Collaboration. That's an organization that we're looking to offer some work training programs, such as making career choices, job search strategies, and how to handle your credit. So excited about that. That's another one they don't charge anything, so we might be able to charge a little bit to make a little bit of money off of it. And to be honest with you, a lot of our classes don't necessarily make money right there, but we apply for grants through our hub that will give us credit towards that and increase our amount of funding through the grant program. And then the last class that we're looking to, not the last class, but the one that I was going to mention, is estate planning, offered in the winter. And that's along with all of our, we've been sub-training instructors. We've been still doing our first aid CPR. We're working with our trainer to try to offer that for the community and some of the coaches in the program. So we're still offering the same stuff, defensive driving, but these are just some of the new ones that we're looking to put together for the winter. Any questions? Yeah.
I'll just send you guys an email, I think. So just curious if there's any opportunity to maybe work with like our records department to do like a coaching or referee, getting some of those kids, maybe some of those older kids opportunity to kind of learn maybe how to referee a younger kid's sport, or people maybe that have kids that are going into it and just want to know some basics about coaching, that kind of mentoring maybe some of those people. Is there any opportunity for doing that?
Sure, that's a great idea. We did one last year of so you want to coach your kid type of class. I had one gentleman show up, but it's worth putting back out there, and I like the idea of the officials because there's such a shortage of officials right now that if you can start them young and get them passionate about it, they may be able to continue. So.
And what made me think of it is we had a football game that I know one of the gentlemen that was refereeing was played Oak Hill football, and I was like, it's super cool to see that when and maybe that's an opportunity even for the following year at like open house or something, as people are kind of maybe new to the district and stuff. And then I don't remember, I think we asked about a babysitting course at one point.
Yeah, I'm talking with the Red Cross, and they haven't freed up an instructor for us yet, but we're in communication, and she said we definitely can offer it. I just have to find out when her next available slot is.
And then I didn't know about the bus driver, if there was anything on the adult ed side with that.
So we're still talking a little bit about that, and what Katie had mentioned in the last meeting. So I've reached out to Region 10, who offers a class, to try to get a checklist of what if we offered it, what we would have to cover in that. So we're still working on it. It's just slow going. I reached out to America, but they weren't really welcoming to share what they were doing because it was going to take students away from them. But yeah, we're still trying to put that together.
And then I just have two more things about maybe with some local businesses and partnering with them of what maybe some needs are. Like I know maybe like a credit union, they maybe have some opportunity to do some additional kind of courses and things. Or, like a mechanic, maybe they have some opportunity to teach some kids or adults too on those for enrichment classes. But I didn't know if there was opportunity to partner with some local businesses on getting some awareness and opportunity for people in our area.
Sure. Yeah. I haven't pursued that, but that's something I could pursue.
And the last thing I have is I was looking at, I work in Augusta, so I was looking at the Augusta humongous booklet as well as Brunswick because we're trying to recruit. And I didn't know, is there opportunity that they maybe have people, because another part is like people aren't volunteering to or offering to come do classes, right? So it's challenging to get instructors. But are there any that would go from one area that's pretty close to us? And
we do a little bit of that with our hub.
Okay.
So we swap instructors back and forth. So we do currently do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Not a question, but more of a suggestion in light of Monday and the public budget hearing. It would be really cool if adult ed could do like a public budget hearing 101 so people understand the function of those meetings, because I think it's not something that we practice very often. And I know like our town meetings are really kind of limited in terms of engagement. So like having people be able to understand like what the function of the hearing is, the rule of engagement, Robert's rules, how to make a motion.
The process,
so people can, so people can be more engaged civically.
Yeah.
It could be cool to think about next year, like, oh, adult ed's going to offer this workshop Thursday and then the budget meeting is Monday. So people are more informed.
Yeah, I've heard that from others, and just trying to figure out the best person to run that class. Oh, okay. Okay, good to know. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, so we move to 6.1 in old business to discuss ways to increase voter turnout for the budget referendum vote. So this was something that was discussed at our last meeting, that you guys wanted to try to come up with some ideas on how to get people out to the polls. So I'm bringing it all out to you guys to start kind of discussing some suggestions of how to do that. Not everybody talk at once. Doug?
Food?
I was just
Can we, can we have vendors or food trucks
maybe at the parking lots for these areas? Is that not allowable, or is that something that could be legitimately entertained?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I was
Good
driving
idea.
around and I was thinking of this stuff, and I'm just like, what's that? 251 feet? Yeah, I don't know.
Christy, did you have something?
Well, I mean, I think I appreciate the new signs that are at the schools that have listed out. I think that was helpful for parents that might not have gotten their mail until the day before to know that something was coming. I think we're in a better place this time because it's during the general election, so we're going to have more people turned out, I hope. I know we have to be careful in terms of telling people how to vote, but we can inform them of the vote. So maybe utilizing Power School. I know people get sick of a robocall, but it might be a nice robocall to like, hey, remember to vote at your local polling places the day of the election.
Yeah, we've done that each time.
Yep.
I think the signs at the schools were really good, but I think also something on the side of the road out here or like more publicly available, because that's one of the big things I heard is like, we don't have kids in the schools, so we don't even know. And so the mailers, kind of all the complications with the mail as well. I think that the district did a good job at getting information out. I think sometimes people have an excuse too, but I think maybe what I would recommend is more publicly, like maybe something at Sabatas Credit Union, or maybe the businesses would hang a sign on the door. I don't know if people even look at those, or the gas pumps, or just something. Next year, I don't want to get to November for a vote. I'd like it done in June, which I think everyone else would agree with that. But I think internal, like with kids in the district, I think people got the calls. I think people shared on Facebook. I think notices and emails went out, and the signs at the school I think are great. But I think you're still limiting to people with kids in the district. So I think by expanding more publicly, I think when people get a building permit or move into the town, maybe the realtors can have something that they put in a packet for them, or the town gives out a paper as well. Things like that I think could help maybe. But
yeah, I'm wondering and I don't know who talks, if it's me or you all to your towns, but like I know Sabatis put it on their electronic sign, but I have seen other towns take their town electronic mobile ones, if they're going to put out for construction or whatever, and well, I've seen. I thought Sabatis had. Oh, okay. Thought I saw one.
But maybe you could. But maybe even rent one or borrow one, or I don't know, if you're just using it for like 2 or 3 days.
If they were available,
Right.
they were available.
I think
that's
a
all.
great idea.
Maybe we can steal the one that Lewiston puts out, looking for help wanted.
Maybe we have A&D, right? That is, yeah. Great
Are
idea.
you done?
Yeah.
Hubby?
Yeah, excuse me. I think we try and do a really good job of getting the information out and telling those who are parents about the meeting. But I looked around last night at attendance, and the number of parents that were there compared to the number of grandparents and great-grandparents was very small. So somehow we have to motivate those parents that we get the information out to turn out at the budget meeting, and then again at the referendum, and at our meetings as we're discussing budget, or dial in, so to speak, and become more involved. And that's tough in today's world. I was growing up, it was very uncommon for both parents to work, and it was quite uncommon for there to be single parent families in the areas that I grew up in anyway, right? So you always had an involved parent that was free to participate in that stuff, and we just unfortunately don't have that anymore. So I think the key is to motivate those who probably have the most to gain or lose by changes to our educational system to participate in the process, and I'm not sure how we can do that. Food would be nice. Babysitting services might be great, so they've got somebody. But, I mean, these are good discussions to have. We'll have another budget season before long, and we'll be going through this again.
I think to add to that, I suggested food as the motivator. I think that it's going to probably come the other way, as you hinted with the babysitting, to remove barriers. One of the other ones that I've heard multiple times when I've reminded people is they say sports. Sports are those nights. Is there any way that we could get the sports practice or games to be not on nights that are on votes, so that these parents don't have to bring their kids or choose between bringing them to going to a vote or going to the sports game? I feel like that's an important barrier to try to remove. We got to try to work on that
There's
end.
absentee ballots, though. They could always request
Not
an
for the
absentee
budget meeting.
Yeah.
Not for the but we were talking about the referendum.
Yeah.
Right. Getting them
I'm just
ballots.
going with all of it. I guess I'm hitting all of
So,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you want them to come to the budget meeting, right? To hear what they're voting on, so that they'll.
I would suggest maybe on the budget meeting splitting it into two parts. Do half articles one night, half articles the other night, so we're not there till 11:30 at night. Maybe even start it a little earlier. I don't know. It's a long sit for anybody. Yeah, I'm not gonna burn a weekend to get. If I wasn't on the board, like I'm just not.
Okay.
Diane.
I have an idea. I don't know if it would work, but if, like the budget meeting we just did the other night, if we had parents who have children in school, if when they checked in, they got a ticket for each kid they have in school, and those kids could bring them to their prospective schools and put them in a barrel, whatever, the school that would collect the most would get something. So, I mean, it's like a little incentive to get parents to go.
I'm not sure that I'd have to look into that. If
That would almost be like bribing somebody to come vote.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's what we in the schools. That's what we do with the kids.
Right.
You get your parents to come in for conferences or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and I've been doing this a long time, and I can tell you what brings people out to vote is things that matter to them. 3/4 of the people it doesn't matter to, so they don't pay attention to the electronic signs in Sabatis. They don't have Facebook. They can't get time to babysit their kids. So I just feel like we do a very good job of getting information out to the people that we have contact with. As far as people we don't have contact with, I think, we put mailers out, and the mailers don't always go out to the people because they don't leave the post office. That's the issue that we've had this time, or it's not getting mailed to the people that don't have kids in school, even though we put it out for the whole town. So somebody's always going to come back and say, well, I didn't know about the meeting because I didn't get a notification, or somebody didn't knock on my door. Short of going door to door and asking people to come out and vote, I think we do a lot better job than what we used to do about getting the information out, and I think the community does with the electronic sign in Sabatis and the amount of people that drive up and down Route 9 every day that don't even know what's on that sign. They just go right by, don't even look. At the transfer station, we passed out flyers there before. People get them, put them in their car, they forget about it. Oh, I didn't know we were voting on Tuesday night, or I didn't know we were voting on Wednesday night. So I think we do a pretty good job now compared to what we used to do about getting information out. And, I think the signs at the school are a great idea, maybe different places around the community that we could put a sign up, but I think if you go out and rent one of those flashing signs and put it on 126, that's an expense. Somebody's going to say, well, why are you guys throwing away money? Because we don't have money to throw away. No matter what anybody thinks out there, we don't have money to throw away. So I think what we do is better than what we used to do, a lot better than what we used to do. And it's a matter of whether or not people feel that it's worth their time. And a lot of people don't feel that way anymore, and that's sad. And I think if we can maybe come up with a really good way to put a curriculum in the schools, the high school, the middle school, and let kids know the process, and they can ask the questions of the parents, well, how come you're not going to vote? There's a vote tonight. Well, I don't have time to go. Well, 6 kids, I would take my kids, and they would walk in with me and stand right there with me while I voted. Or I would stay, my wife would go, and then I would go after her, but we found a way to do it, and you can find a way to do it if you want to do it, but it's whether or not you want to do it. That's the thing. And the sad part is, I don't think there's a lot of people out there in these 3 communities that want to do it or have the drive to do it. And that's, in my mind, is sad. Because
I mean, the good news, you had a better turnout than Lewis did.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
You do
if
have
you go by the numbers, yeah.
If you look at across how many people actually
Right.
participate in school referendum votes,
Right.
It's never historically been large.
Right. And
So
to,
do we
and
do that in school though? Like, do kids in school? Because I don't know, mine have ever said that. But like, do they have a mock voting?
they used to.
Yeah, for presidential elections.
They used to, usually for presidential elections,
Yeah.
but I've been asked to go in and talk to a 5th grade class about the process and stuff, you know. But my point being is, you're not going to get people to go if they don't feel it's important to them. And that's, in my mind, sad. Because we can do whatever, you know, we can put signs out, and we're always going to get the people. I mean, I get people in my own family that don't go out to vote. And I tell them about it, and I say, hey, it's important that you go, and they just don't go because, oh, I forgot about it. Or I was doing something else. So I think we do a good job. I think we're doing what we can, and I think we're doing a lot better job than what we used to do.
Could we do a handout too? Maybe like, I know there's a lot of spring concerts and things. Like, could you do maybe like a little half a page, and everyone that comes through the door gets one that says you're going to be voting soon or things like that?
I mean, with Laura's thing, I'm thinking of all the other meetings that go on in town too. The select board meeting. If we could ask them to throw a little plug out there for maybe their audience.
I do.
Yeah, you know, so I don't know if ours does. I'll ask them next time I'm kind of down at the.
They're saying plenty about
Yeah,
it.
they got.
Is your mic on, Doug?
I don't know. Oh, I'm
there
just
you
not very
are.
close.
There.
But I mean, I might bring that up to them. Like, do you mind just? I'll give a list of when our votes or meetings are. Do you mind just saying that at the beginning of your meeting, when that way we can cross? Maybe they want us to mention at the beginning of ours, and I can cross-reference when their meetings are that are important. You know, just to try to get that whole connection interface. I don't know, as a suggestion with ours, but.
Yeah, I have one other that I brought up several years ago, maybe once or twice over the time I've been here, is that almost always there is a Saturday in June for the graduation followed by a Tuesday for a referendum. And why the school officials don't charge our graduates to go out and exercise their civic right and responsibility to go and vote on a school budget that just provided them 12 or 13 years of education, 14 if they go to pre-K. We should do that. And that also then reminds everybody at that graduation of the referendum and the importance that it has had over the history of those students being in the school system. I was fortunate enough to be really in attendance. I was at a function as somebody at the organization where a class reunion of Oak Hill students was held just a week ago, and they obviously at class reunion started talking about teachers and the school experience, and most of them were talking about all the fond memories they had at Oak Hill, and then they started talking about teachers that were not very well liked, who treated them like kids all the time, So there was some of that. But that's a place there. So I went around and reminded people, hey, you know, you got a budget meeting coming up. And I didn't see any of them there, but, you know, it just was another forum where there were some people that were vested. A great many of them now live in Monmouth or Winthrop or someplace else, not one of our 3 towns. But, I think hitting the graduation class and everybody that's there to remind them, if the timing is such that that's a civic responsibility and duty that a lot of Americans have given their life to protect and give you that ability and freedom to do that. And if you don't exercise it, their sacrifices were in many cases in vain.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think we've got some good ideas to go forward with. So if you're all set, we can move on.
I am giving permission for administrators to leave for the evening because of the late Monday night, if you don't mind. Okay. Also, I want to make you aware there is active shooter thing that happened in Lewiston that is distracting. So I just want to make sure people know there are casualties. So I don't have any information because obviously I'm not looking and stuff, but just to make you aware there is stuff going on in Lewiston right now.
Okay, so we'll move on to new business. 7 point. It feels hard to move on.
I know.
To business
I wanted
after
people to
having
know
just said all
so that
that.
you just just so that you are aware.
7.1 to approve the first reading of the following policies. JFAA, Administration of Resident and Non-Resident Students.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have some. So it's
Wanna
really
make sure
admission.
Kathy's catching.
It's really admission of resident students. That's the title that's on the policy, not non-resident. Right. So currently, it's the admission of resident students. But I guess I have a question on the third paragraph. It talks about students need to be in the residence of either a parent or a court-appointed guardian. I know of many times that students have been with grandparents that live in the area and attend our schools, but are not there under a court order. It's just if mom or dad's not taking care of them or take off, they're left with the grandparent. And this policy would prevent them from being a student in our school system. And so I am concerned about that paragraph's wording. So I have, I don't like that paragraph. If they're residing with a resident in a residential home or in a home in one of our 3 towns, for whatever reason they're there, they should be allowed to be a student in our school system. So if they're staying with an aunt or an uncle, maybe they're couch surfing within the area, or maybe they are a grandparent, then they should be able to attend our schools as a resident student.
So that goes under a different category as unaccompanied youth. So that wouldn't go under as being under the guardianship. So there's other legal pieces of how and who and when we can register students as unaccompanied youth. But this is specifically talking about residency and guardianship. That would be a different policy for unaccompanied youth.
Right, so I couldn't find another policy that addressed it. This policy here says they wouldn't be a resident student, and I disagree with that statement for someone who is being raised by their grandparents informally, and they happen to be in our towns. I think they're a resident student and should be considered that. If there's a legal twist on that someplace, then I'd like to see the accompanying policy before we approve this as written that goes and stipulates that Joe, who's living with Grandma Sarah in the town of Wales, is able to attend our school as a resident student and doesn't have to go through a bunch of hoops to go and get signed off or get a legal guardianship that costs money and everything else that goes with that. So that's my concern with this policy. And this applied to me. I cared for my grandson when his mom moved up to South Paris and he couldn't handle the living arrangement. he came back to stay with me, and he went right back into our school system. So under this policy, he wouldn't have been a resident student. And I know other people that are in the same situation.
I think it goes into the JFAB of non-resident students and going there. So if what you're saying, Bob, if I'm understanding correctly, is they are a non-resident student residing into a home of a resident. And so it actually is going to follow into the admission of a non-resident student that is going to be able to stay in a resident in RSU4. So what
I
you're...
believe they're a resident. They might only be 16, but they're a resident. This is their mailing address. If they could vote, this is where they would vote. This is where their connection is. They're a resident to our town. They're not from Monmouth. They don't live in Monmouth. They don't live in Lewiston. So I believe if they're living in our town, they are a resident.
So we would have to get legal counsel on that.
Yeah, for the child, what you're saying for the person that's living and paying the taxes, they're a resident. However, in terms of the policy for the student, they are non-resident and they would follow under the JFAB, and that is how we would register them as a non-resident. They would still end up registering and being able to be an RSU4 student, but it would be under the non-resident student. In our current policy, we actually have it to bind, that's why it was listed that way on 7.1. And we said, we're not allowing anyone to come. So we're now parceling out, you're a resident, this is what you need to do, this is what home and guardianship looks like. And if you're a non-resident, which is the situation you said, under JFAB, that's where it would fall under. So that's why it's now 2 policies.
So then every time we publish school population students, that little section down where we put down non-residents, they'd be included in there?
Yes. Along
with the resident from Lewiston whose parent happens to teach in our system, and they bring their
They would be
kids to school.
superintendent's agreements, yes.
So they'd be in there, and so I don't agree with that because in our another policy, next one coming up says they're going to have to request it, written parental request. They're not even living with their parent anymore; they're living with somebody else, and a formal approval on a space program availability. So that means that we could say, no, we don't have room in that 4th grade for a non-resident, even though you've lived here your whole life, but you're not living with your parents, so you're not a resident, so we're not going to take it.
So there are laws that protect a child in terms of unaccompanied youth. There are laws that protect children when they're unaccompanied homeless youth. Well, the statement for this is to allow non-residents that are seeking superintendent's agreement to say, we don't have capacity, and the superintendent can deny a superintendent agreement because we don't, as you gave a 4th grade example, we don't have room in the 4th grade program, so we can deny it based on that. So through this policy, it allows the superintendent to deny based on availability. But it does under JFAB, under E, give us the category to follow the laws of unaccompanied youth as a non-resident and how we would register them.
I was just going to make a motion to move it.
Any other discussion? No? All right. All those in favor? All those not in favor? Thank you. Next is JFAB, admission of non-resident students.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I had 2 things down in paragraph E. Says in the very last sentence, it says a transfer student when the 2 superintendents approve in the student's best interest. Grammatically, I don't think that's correct. I think it's probably superintendents agree or approve based upon it's in the student's best interest or something. So I don't think grammatically that section is correct. So they don't approve in the student's best interest. They approve because it might be in the student's best interest. And then I had highlighted here in paragraph B, and this is, I just kind of mentioned this, is on a space program available basis. That needs to be a period there, I guess, because if you make it a comma and you go right into reapplication shall be made annually, it doesn't make any sense. So I think that comma behind bases needs to be a period. And then
Any other discussion?
So I disagree with Bob's suggestion on E because of the way it reads. There's a lot of semicolons. So the transfer student so it says all of the different types, and then it says semicolon, a transfer student when the two superintendents approve in the student's best interest. They're only talking about the transfer student. And I think it reads appropriately.
so if we take out all the semicolons because each one is a separate part of a separate sentence,
Yes.
all right, so then it would be in accordance with main law related to the assignment of students for school purposes, such as a transfer student when the two superintendents approve in the student's best interest.
Yes.
Approve in the student's best interest? Approve that the
Approving-
transfer is in the student's best interest.
Approving the admission of the non-resident student, because that's what the policy is.
I agree with Christie.
I do as well.
That's fine. I'll take it to the,
Any other discussion?
my wordsmith says it was improper.
All those in favor? All those not in favor? Policy EGAD, copyright compliance. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We're all.
Yeah.
I can see that. Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? EGAD-R, copyright compliance administrative procedure.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Policy IJNDB, student computer and internet use.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? JICH, drug and alcohol use by students.
So moved.
Any discussion?
Go ahead, Scott. Or I have a real quick one.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in the very last paragraph, it says Oak Hill High School shall distribute this policy. Is only the Oak Hill High School going to distribute it? Okay, it was caught every place else, but just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Scott?
I don't see any exclusions in the policy for students that may be using drugs under a prescription situation. So this policy sort of goes against our marijuana policy, for an example. It says, no student shall distribute, dispense, possess, use, or be under the influence of, including, well, marijuana was one. There's other ones too, barbiturates, anabolic steroids. These are things that could be prescribed by a doctor, but there's no exclusion for a student that has a prescription for some of these things. There should be a little blip, something that says that.
Or
if-
refer to that policy, refer to the
refer
medication policy, yep.
Medication policy
Mhm.
for exclusions.
Can we send it back for that one?
Well, this is first reading. This is
Unless,
first
unless
reading.
unless there's something in the
No, and we
the
can,
medication policy that refers back to this. That
and we can note that policy at the bottom. A reference, we can reference that policy.
I think you need to do more than just reference.
No,
it.
I'm saying in addition. Sorry, Bob. I
Oh,
didn't,
in addition.
I didn't
Yeah,
phrase
yeah.
that correctly. In addition. Who was? Okay. Okay, so Sam, yeah, she's leaving. Yeah, that's okay. Yep. No problem. Okay. Yeah, yeah, drive
So-
safely, yeah.
We will go for the vote. All those in favor of changing or adding on? Yes, adding. Yep.
We just need to make sure that there's something that cross-references our medical marijuana use, other prescription use. Is that policy?
Can we send it back to the policy and bring it?
Yeah, for another
Yeah.
first
Okay.
reading. That's going to be a substantial rewrite, I think.
Awesome, thank you.
Substantial. Remember, anything substantial, we need to check with the attorneys. That's all.
I'm sorry, was there anything, Bob, that you wanted to add to that while they're taking it back?
No, I
Okay.
think Scott brought up a good point. We need to go and clarify that there are exceptions to that rule, and we have it in policy XYZ, and then as a reference.
I just thought maybe I thought you had some things before, so it's like
I
if
just
they're
had the
taking
Oak
it
Hill
back.
High School.
Okay, thank you.
And Christy made a note of that, so that'll get changed.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next. Okay. JICIA, Weapons, Violence, and School Safety.
So moved.
And any discussion?
I have some, or one. So this must be in section 4. I only printed out the page 3. But it talks about the second paragraph on the page starts a student who is determined to have brought a firearm to school or to have possessed a firearm at school shall be expelled for a period of not less than 1 year, except this requirement may be modified by the superintendent on a case-by-case basis in writing. I thought the board determines the period of expulsion or being expelled and allows, typically it's indefinite, and then leave it up to the superintendent to come back with a recommendation if they think the student is in a condition where they would no longer be a threat and could come back into the school system. So this gives a arbitrary period of time unless modified by the superintendent. I think that's a school board function in the quasi.
They can check the school law. It's in the law book. Yeah. So we'll check the law.
Okay.
We'll review it. May have been updated. We might have. So no problem. Yeah. Okay. So if it's based on the most updated law, then that's what it says.
Well, check that, because I would assume the law says a minimum of a year, but then want to go and give discretion to a superintendent to go and modify it.
Well,
In
we'll
the
look
law?
in the
We'll
law
see.
book.
We'll check it out.
Well, we're at the conference tomorrow, Bob. You can ask these questions because you get free attorney advice for 2 days.
Forgot all about that.
So is this one coming back?
Well, remember, first reading is an opportunity for you to give feedback. Second reading, you could say you could read it second reading and say you want to put it on hold or whatever that word is that you say. So first reading doesn't mean it's second reading is whether you would officially approve it. So you can either put it on hold now or you put it on hold
I don't
later.
think so. I think you can check, and if it's something else, then that can come up when it comes back for second reading.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you want to still do stuff with it, we can.
I'm still, so are we voting?
Yeah, you can vote.
Yeah.
Right. There's the word. Thank you, Sharon. Table.
All those in favor of the first reading?
Remember, it's going to go to a second reading.
It's going to go to a second reading. It's going to come back.
Okay.
And it's going to come back.
And then you could say table it. Or yeah.
All those not in favor? Okay. We'll move down to 7.2 to discuss the superintendent evaluation process. So I'm bringing this forward as it was brought forward about the evaluation. I also want to make sure that I also let everyone know that this is a personnel matter and what's discussed will not be made public. But we are in the process of trying to digitize the form. Instead of it was about 15 pages.
Word document.
We're trying to make it so that it's easier of a Google form to fill out instead of you having to try and write it all out. So I'm hoping by next Monday you will all have it in your email boxes to fill out. It'll be anonymous. I will be the only one that sees that. And then I will talk with Katie, and then we'll come back to the board. We say the December meeting, and we'll be in executive session, and we'll discuss it then. I just wanted to let you guys know that we are actively working on it. There's just been a lot of other things happening that have kind of pushed it further back. So.
Do you mind, because this is my first go round of this, so do you mind just maybe a 2-minute, like, what this means and why and what timeline we have? Like, it comes Monday, we have so many days to complete it, or?
So you'll have I'll give you probably about 2 weeks or so to fill it out. I know we all have other lives that go on too. I'm one of them. What it is it's going to ask you how you feel the superintendent has been doing within the district, other things that maybe of improvements, things that are going well, and things like that. So it's almost like a performance evaluation if you were at a job, but it's a little bit more in depth than that as I'm reading through the many pages of forms.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Diane?
I was at a board conference today in Augusta. That's why I was late here. And then I got lost because I had to take a detour. The bridge was out. But anyway, we were talking about superintendents and doing evaluation process. And a lot of districts have their admin team do anonymous, like talking about their superintendent. It's not for the public to see. It's for the administrator or for the superintendent to see. Yeah, it's just so they have an idea of what they can work on and what's working well. So here. All Anderson. And we're in Androscoggin here, right?
Yep.
So
I texted the chief and I've not heard from him, but my guess is he's too busy. I was going to say he's too busy.
So can we adjourn the meeting?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you tell me that,
we're in
but
shelter in place for right now. What we can do is make sure we all go out together. Right. Well, I mean, we could put a sign on.
Yeah,
ring the bell.
all right, 7.3.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to show up.
So is the evaluation being changed?
No.
Okay, because that one was the one approved. Not saying it
No,
doesn't
well,
need to be
no.
changed, but
The policy reads that the superintendent and the board chair, I believe, and I'd have to pull the policy up, agree to what the process will be.
Right. And we discussed it. But when I was handed paper forms,
yeah.
I was like, I want to make this easier for the board.
Okay, so that form was the one that was approved by the board to be used.
So
Okay.
it's going
And you're
from
using
that
that.
form
Yeah.
just into a Google Doc.
And I'm not saying that it can't be modified and updated, but that's just what was approved by the board.
Yeah, no, the
So
form isn't being
We're
changed.
going to change it.
I'm just,
And
the mode of
reason
transportation
why
is being changed.
By statute, we have to do it every December.
I don't know, that form, when we did it for Andy, it was super complicated and.
I think part of it though was because it was in Word and like we couldn't like type into it and it was just.
And it was a bear for me to go and bring everything together.
Yeah.
So
That's why she's trying.
I'm trying to streamline it so that it's not so difficult.
And especially when we only got like 3 or 4
You know,
people
it would
respond.
be nice if it was like an actual performance evaluation where it says, it's got the category, it lists out like maybe a job duty or something that's like meets expectations.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like
It is.
A, B, C, D, and then like
It is.
comments.
Yeah, you'll have.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, you'll have a rating, and then there'll be some comments that you can add into that. So it is sort of like that. So I just wanted to let you know that we are working on it. So we'll go down to 7.3 to approve the school revolving renovation fund SRF application.
So we have, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Katie, now you can.
So there are 3 applications. This is just the first step. You approve it. We submit it by October 31st, and then we wait to hear. So this is just approving. This is all 3 on air quality, Carrie Ricker, Libby Tozier, Sabatis Primary. So you're not committing to anything. All you're saying is, yes, put the applications in. Then we go from there. Okay.
Is any of the funding required in this fiscal year?
No. The only thing we would have to pay is CHA, put them together, but they didn't have to do a ton of work, so I'm hoping it's not going to be a lot. It wasn't a lot the last time.
So if we're granted and we accept it, it's next fiscal year?
Correct, yes.
Any other discussion?
Might even be the next fiscal.
Okay. All those in favor? All those not in favor? Okay. 7.4, to approve a co-op with Lewiston High School girls ice hockey with Oak Hill High School.
Second.
Any discussion?
No money,
No.
and there are 3 girls that will be participating.
All right. Okay. All those in favor? Are you in?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Committee reports, finance and facilities.
Finance and Facilities met tonight to discuss the consolidation plan, and we are continuing to work on that, and there's going to be some big news coming up in the next couple meetings or so. We're getting together, putting a committee together to actually look at closing 1 of 2 schools, so there'll be more to come on that. That's it.
CAI technology. Sorry.
It was just
No,
Kathy
I was
and
going to help you.
It was just Kathy and I tonight. She shared kind of what the standardized testing, like our career assessment stuff is going to look like, and we strategized how to help parents inform.
9, any board member comments?
I have something. Yeah, I think it's getting to the point where it's really important that we come up with some type of curriculum for our high school and middle school students where we can get local politics and the process back into the schools, and we can start educating students either with candidate forums or meet the candidate, or so we can get students to start asking questions. Because what happened Monday night, basically in my mind, was because people didn't know the process, or they didn't know how the process works. So I think there's an important step that we need to take by educating our students in our local government systems and how the school system actually runs, because it's not getting any better by people just being able to go on social media and put out misinformation or not know how the process works. So I think the more education we do, the better off we are, and I think it's possible to do it between the middle school and the high school, and I think it would definitely be a step forward.
Anyone else?
So I wanted to just give a shout out to our football 7-8 team that has made the playoffs as well. So the Lisbon has been fantastic at a co-op with that. And then also our field hockey, our whole field hockey program has a play day on Saturday. So inviting some other towns to our district and that. So, I hope that goes well. I know a few people have been doing a ton of work on that, so a huge shout out to them. I did want to just comment on two things. I think it's challenging for some people outside of the district to really understand the work that our staff, our teachers, our janitors, our ed techs, our kitchen staff, and all of those people do. And I would like to see some sort, as we're in this day in technology, some sort of online recognition that you can go post a comment, and obviously it would be approved or things, but there's so many people that every day that, because we have multiple kids in the district, but every day it's a, like, oh, they checked in on me at lunch, or, they knew I was kind of sad, and they kind of just go out of their way for that. And, I do send emails and I say, like, hey, huge shout out. Thanks for your help. We recognize some people here at the board when we have these meetings, but I think, just for that culture of showing that we really appreciate that from the community level, and we can, maybe a person that gets the most nominations gets a post on Facebook and, you were recognized, because I think that's really important. So I'd like to try to see something of that. In regards to the budget discussion on Monday, I was, RSU4 has a Facebook page that I think information is shared often. And I was a little disappointed that nothing about the referendum was posted that day. People didn't find the Zoom link. They were kind of scrambling, and then they get, what are you hiding, and things with that. But there was a post about a math thing. There was a post about a spirit day. And then there was 2 posts about our Community Cares backpack, which I think is a fantastic group. But at the same time, nothing about the referendum. So in the last week, there's 2 posts about this thing, but nothing about the referendum vote that day.
The budget meeting or the referendum?
The budget meeting, sorry. So nothing that day about the budget meeting. And I was like, so from the RSU4 page itself, I just would have liked to see maybe, I know in the past.
Don't hesitate. If you see something that isn't, Laura, I appreciate it because I get
they
it.
did in the
100%.
past. It was like, go vote today.
Right. We
So-
talked about putting it up, so whatever.
Yeah.
But no excuses. But if you notice anything, pop me an email and just say, Katie, is there a slide going up to, you know what I mean? I don't mind that. I mean, Monday, so.
Yeah. And
I
don't
hear
know
you loud
in the
and clear.
future if they should be events. Do you know how like they have people do events if you do an event? I don't know. I don't know who manages it or if they have time or anything either. So that's just a consideration.
We could have had it up there.
And then maybe a post every week. I know Brian sends them out with the other sports, but maybe just those highlights in the community. So if we can get more community members, I saw one about the dance and things. So I think just turning that into a positive awareness information. It doesn't cost us anything either. I think those are all just great points.
Yeah, I was going to say along those lines, some parents have their Facebook page for Libby Tozier, and they have a Facebook page for Oak Hill Middle, but they don't necessarily do the RSU4. So making sure that those
They're all linked.
are all linked together so it can appear on all of them.
Yeah,
It would be,
that was good.
it would also be nice if the teachers could put it on their websites. You know what I mean?
But not all teachers have
But
that.
not all teachers
Yeah.
have websites.
And some teachers, I have one, our third grade teacher did put it on.
Yeah.
Oh, good feedback.
And I know you said about getting a bus to put bus drivers wanted. They could put a bus out and put the budget, go into the budget meeting or whatever.
Because like even in the app right now, it doesn't say like,
Yeah.
to get this out on the school budget. That could be in the calendar.
We hear you. Just remember, every sign that goes on something costs money. But it's a great idea. Great idea.
Can have the kids make one.
Yeah, have a banner made.
that can go through weather, and if it rains,
It just
that
has
sign
to
is
be that
gone.
day.
But
It just has to be that day.
But no, I hear the feedback, and we are going to work on the public relations of getting more positive stories out. So
You
yeah.
could talk to Jenny Clucci or Jenny. She teaches.
But remember, signs have to have plastic. They have to
No,
be.
but what I'm
Okay,
saying
sorry.
is her parents own screen
Oh,
screen
okay.
printing is what I'm saying.
Oh.
Because they printed banners for me when I did Farm Day years ago.
Oh.
And so you just change the date on them, you know?
Yeah. That's a good idea. Great idea.
Yeah, you just make a generic banner and leave
Yeah.
the date and just print the date.
Yeah, don't forget,
And-
voting or
Right,
whatever,
and just
school
post
budget
it up.
vote, and just put the date.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I want to second Rob's comment with covering the civic stuff in school. I know that history teachers have a lot they probably are responsible
And they
for.
do, yeah. they do.
But I feel like it's I've been to enough meetings now to see and votes and stuff that there is some sort of weird discrepancy where people don't quite understand the process to some level.
And we used to have a teacher that would send all 8th graders that was part of her eighth grade class to come to a meeting and sit in on the meeting.
Yeah.
And we had to answer their questions, and then remember, Bob, we would have to answer their questions and sign off on their papers that they had to turn into class.
Yeah, at least some exposure or something does need to go on. I feel like, I mean, I know they have curriculum they're responsible for, but I feel like that it would genuinely help out everything. It would be just a rising tide for all ships, having known the process.
I love it, but that could have come before. So
I know.
I'm going to, without any further objection, I'm adjourning